I inherited a house. It was the only thing left after my parents died. My stepsister Heather never considered me part of the family. Growing up, she made sure I knew I was an outsider. When our parents passed, she was furious that I got the house. Now, 7 years of silence later, my phone buzzed with her name. What could she possibly want? If you have ever had family turn their back on you, drop a comment below and hit that subscribe button. The conversation we had next changed everything. My mom died when I was 7. I still remember standing in that cemetery holding my dad's hand, not fully understanding why everyone was crying. 2 years later, Dad remarried. That is when Heather entered my life. She was 12, 3 years older, and from day one she made it clear I did not belong. Our house was a modest 2-story, in a quiet suburban neighborhood. 4 bedrooms, a finished basement, and a backyard with a maple tree where Dad built a treehouse. To me, it was home. To Heather, it was her territory that I was invading. This was our house first, she told me once when I accidentally knocked over her school project. You are just visiting. My stepmother Linda was not cruel, but she never went out of her way to make me feel included either. She would cook meals, help with homework, and keep the peace, but there was always an invisible wall between us. The warmth in her voice changed when she talked to Heather versus when she addressed me. Maurice, please keep your toys in your room, she would say sternly. Then moments later, Heather, sweetie, would you like some cookies I just baked? The most painful memories came during family events. When Heather turned 13, her mother threw her a big party with all her friends and extended family. I spent hours making a card for her, drawing a picture of us standing together by the treehouse. When I tried to give it to her, she took one look at it and said, "Why would I want a card from you?" Later, I overheard her telling her friends, "That is just Maurice. He is not actually my brother. He is not real family." I ran to my room and cried myself to sleep that night, clutching a photo of my mom. I wondered what she would think of how things turned out, if she would be disappointed that I could not make my new family love me. As the years went by, I tried everything to gain acceptance. I offered to help Heather with chores. I stayed quiet when she wanted to watch her shows. I even pretended to like the same music she did. Nothing worked. The divide only grew wider. When I was 17, I got accepted to college. It was my ticket out. I packed my things and left without much fanfare. My dad hugged me goodbye, Linda gave me an awkward pat on the shoulder, and Heather did not even come downstairs. During my college years, I built a new life. I made friends who accepted me for who I was. I studied finance and landed a good job at an investment firm. I visited home less and less. When I was 28, Heather got married. I found out through a mutual cousin. I was not invited to the wedding. A year later, she had her first child, then another. I only saw pictures on social media, never in person. Then came the call that changed everything. My dad and Linda had been in a car accident. Neither survived. I rushed back home for the funeral, a hollowed-out shell of grief. Heather was there with her husband and children. She did not acknowledge me during the service. When people offered condolences, she acted as if I was not standing right beside her. The reading of the will was a week later. Dad had left the house to me. His financial advisor explained that since the house had originally belonged to my mother, Dad wanted to ensure it stayed with me. Heather exploded in rage. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I grew up in that house. I have children who need a home. He is not even your real son." The last words were directed at the memory of our father. I sat there numb as she stormed out. That was the last time I saw her. Until now. 7 years passed. I was 35, built a successful career as a financial advisor, and lived alone in the family home that I had renovated. The kitchen now had granite countertops, the hardwood floors were refinished, and the basement had become my home office. Yet, despite the changes, the house still held the echoes of my childhood, both the good and painful memories. I had moved beyond the past, or so I thought. My friends became my chosen family. Jackson and his wife Diana lived nearby and had me over for dinner every Sunday. My colleague Teresa and I had a standing lunch date every Wednesday. My neighbor Mr. Callahan, an elderly gentleman who reminded me of my dad, often stopped by with homemade bread. The house had become more than just a building. It was my sanctuary. In the current market, it was worth close to $500,000, but to me its value was immeasurable. It contained the last echoes of my mother's presence, the faint memory of her laugh in the living room, the ghost of her hand on the banister. Then came the call that reopened old wounds. Maurice, it is Heather. Her voice sounded older but unmistakable. My heart raced as I gripped the phone tighter. Heather, this is a surprise. I kept my tone neutral, guarded. How have you been? She asked, her voice unnaturally cheerful. It has been so long. I have been fine, working, taking care of the house. I paused. How are your kids? They are wonderful. Tyler is 10 now, and Amanda is 8. They are so smart. Tyler is playing baseball, and Amanda is learning piano. The conversation continued with this superficial pleasantness, like we were distant acquaintances catching up. I waited for the other shoe to drop. It did not take long. So she said, her voice shifting. Tom lost his job 3 months ago. The company downsized and they let go of his entire department. I am sorry to hear that, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I did not wish hardship on her family. We have been staying with his parents, but their place is too small for all of us. The kids are sharing a tiny room and Tom and I are sleeping on a pull-out couch. She paused. We have been looking for a place, but the housing market is insane right now. I already knew where this was heading. Maurice, I was thinking, that house is really too big for just one person. It was meant for a family. It is my home, Heather. I know. But what if? What if you sold it to us? We could not afford market value, but maybe you could give us a family discount. After all, it was our family home too. I nearly choked at the audacity. Our family home. After years of telling me I was not family, I am not interested in selling, I said firmly. But Maurice, we have nowhere else to go. The kids need stability. They need a yard to play and rooms of their own. Surely you can understand that I do understand, but this is my house. Dad left it to me. Her voice turned cold. It should have been mine. You know that. I was his real child. That house has been in our family for generations. There it was. Real child. The same rejection that had been the soundtrack of my childhood. I am sorry about your situation, but my answer is no, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger rising in my chest. You are being selfish. What about my children? They are your niece and nephew, for God's sake. Niece and nephew you have never let me meet. The call ended with her hanging up on me. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The text started the next day. Pictures of her children looking sad in a cramped room. They ask about their uncle Maurice, the uncle they have never met because he is too selfish to help family. Then came the phone calls, sometimes late at night. The kids are having trouble at school because they do not have a stable home. This is affecting their grades. Do you want that on your conscience? The pressure escalated when mutual acquaintances began reaching out. I heard about Heather's situation. Cannot believe you would not help your own sister. One evening I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw a post from Heather, feeling heartbroken that someone who benefited from my father's generosity cannot find it in his heart to help his grandchildren. Family should stick together in hard times. The comments were filled with sympathy for her and thinly veiled criticism of me. People who had never met me were judging my character based on her one-sided story. I began to doubt myself. Was I being selfish? Was I holding on to the house out of spite? Would my father have wanted me to help Heather and her children? The guilt gnawed at me, making me question my own motives. The house suddenly felt too big, too empty, haunted not just by memories but by my own uncertainty. The doorbell rang on a Saturday afternoon. I was in the middle of preparing lunch when I opened the door to find Heather standing there with 2 children. Surprise, she said with forced cheerfulness. I thought it was time the kids saw their Uncle Maurice and the house where their mom grew up. Before I could respond, she had ushered the children inside. Tyler, a lanky boy with a serious expression, and Amanda, a little girl with her mother's eyes, stood awkwardly in my foyer. Kids, this is your Uncle Maurice, Heather said, and this is the house I told you about. The children looked around with curiosity. Amanda pointed to the staircase. Is that where your bedroom was, Mom? Yes, sweetie. The one at the end of the hall. And your grandparents' room was the big one overlooking the backyard. I stood there stunned by the invasion of my privacy, as Heather conducted a tour of my house like a realtor. She pointed out features reminiscent about her childhood and completely ignored the changes I had made to the place. This wall used to be blue, she told the children. Touching a wall, I had painted a warm beige. And there used to be a hutch here with all of Grandma's china. The children began to make themselves comfortable. Tyler asked if he could watch TV in the living room. Amanda wanted to see the treehouse in the backyard. Heather nodded encouragingly. Go ahead, explore. This house has been in our family for generations. As the children scattered, I pulled Heather aside. What are you doing? Just letting the kids see their heritage, she replied innocently. You cannot just show up unannounced and let your kids run wild in my house. Our house, she corrected. Dad never would have wanted you to keep it all to yourself. I was about to respond when I heard Amanda ask from the stairway, which room would be mine when we move in? Heather's reply froze my blood. Probably the blue one, sweetie. Uncle Maurice is just staying here temporarily. This is really our family home. That is enough, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Heather, I need to speak with you. Alone. I led her to the kitchen while the kids continued to explore. I have made it perfectly clear I am not selling this house, I said, keeping my voice low. You cannot tell your children they are moving in here. Be reasonable, Maurice. This house is meant for a family. You are just one person. It is my home, I insisted. Dad left it to me. Because he felt sorry for you, she snapped. Because your mom died and he felt guilty. Not because you deserved it more than me. I think you should leave. You would throw out children, your own flesh and blood. They are not. I stopped myself, refusing to sink to her level. You are manipulating them, and me. Please leave now. You were never really part of this family, she hissed. Just someone Dad took pity on. You think he loved you like he loved me, his real daughter? The words stung even after all these years. I escorted them out despite the children's protests and Heather's glares. As they left, I overheard Heather tell Amanda, Do not worry, honey. We will be back. Uncle Maurice just needs to remember what family means. 2 days later, I received a certified letter from a law firm representing Heather. She was contesting our father's will, claiming he was not of sound mind when he made his decision and that as his biological child, she had more right to the family home than I did. The letter was full of legal jargon, but the message was clear. This was war. I contacted my own attorney, who assured me the will was solid. Still, the stress of a potential legal battle weighed heavily on me. A week later, I returned home from a business trip to find my key would not work in the lock. Confused, I tried again, then noticed slight scratches around the keyhole. Someone had changed the locks. I called a locksmith, who arrived an hour later. As he worked on the door, I noticed a curtain move in the living room window. Someone was inside my house. When the locksmith finally got the door open, I was shocked to find my belongings piled in boxes in the foyer. Family photos had been removed from the walls. The furniture had been rearranged. What the hell, I muttered, moving deeper into the house. In the kitchen, I found Heather making dinner. The smell of my father's favorite pot roast recipe filled the air. Tyler sat at the table doing homework and Amanda was setting plates. What are you doing in my house? I demanded. Heather barely looked up. We moved in. The kids start school here next week. You cannot just break in and change the locks on my house. Our house, she corrected. And we did not break in. We have a key. Dad gave me 1 year ago. Get out, now, or I am calling the police. Go ahead, she said calmly. I will tell them how you are trying to evict children from their rightful family home. How will that look? A single man forcing a family with nowhere else to go out onto the street. Amanda looked up, her eyes wide with fear. Are we going to have to leave Mommy? No, sweetie, Heather said, shooting me a challenging look. Your Uncle Maurice would not do that to you. Would you, Maurice? I was trapped in a nightmare. If I called the police, I would look like a monster. If I let them stay, I would lose my home. I retreated to the front porch, hands shaking as I called my lawyer. He advised me to document everything and assured me I had every legal right to remove them. Still, I hesitated, torn between my rights and the optics of the situation. That night, I slept in a hotel. The next morning, I returned with 2 police officers. Heather greeted them with tears streaming down her face, the children clinging to her sides. Officers, please, she sobbed. We have nowhere else to go. My children will be homeless. This was my father's house. We grew up here. One officer looked at me with judgment in his eyes. The other asked to see proof of ownership. I provided the deed and the will. They examined the documents and then asked Heather to provide any proof of her claim. She had none, of course, just emotional appeals and accusations. "Ma'am, I am afraid you will have to leave," the senior officer finally said. "This is legally his property. You are trespassing. You are making children homeless," she accused loud enough for the gathering neighbors to hear. "Is that the kind of person you are?" Maurice, throwing children out on the street. As they gathered their hastily packed belongings, Heather made sure the children were visibly upset. Amanda was sobbing. Tyler looked at me with hatred in his eyes. "This is why I always told you he was not really family," Heather said to them loud enough for me to hear. "Family does not do this to each other." I stood on the porch watching them load their car, feeling like the villain in their story despite being the victim in reality. The neighbors whispered some taking pictures. I knew this would be all over social media by nightfall. After they drove away, I went inside and collapsed on the couch, emotionally drained. My home no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt tainted by Heather's presence, by her accusations, by the weight of guilt she had expertly placed on my shoulders. The days following Heather's forced removal were some of the darkest I had experienced since my parents' deaths. I felt hollowed out, questioning everything about myself. Was I really the cold-hearted person Heather made me out to be? Would my father be ashamed of me? I could not sleep in my own bed, haunted by Amanda's tears and Tyler's accusing eyes. Instead, I spent nights on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying my childhood and wondering if I had misremembered everything. Had I been the problem all along? One evening, in a state of emotional exhaustion, I went up to the attic. I had not been there since I inherited the house. It was filled with boxes of my parents' belongings that I had not had the heart to sort through. Now, desperate for answers, I began opening them. In an old filing cabinet, I found my father's important papers: birth certificates, insurance policies, and at the bottom a sealed envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter from my father dated just months before his death. "My dear son Maurice," it began. "If you are reading this, I am gone, and you are facing the burden of sorting through what I have left behind. I want you to know how proud I am of the man you have become. You have always been my son in every way that matters. Blood is the least of what makes a family." Tears streamed down my face as I continued reading. "I know things were not always easy between you and Heather. I failed you both by not insisting on more kindness, more understanding. That is a regret I will carry with me. But know this, I love you both equally differently, but equally. The house I leave to you was your mother's dream, and I know she would want you to have it. It is yours without guilt or obligation, your home to keep or sell as you see fit." The letter went on, full of fatherly advice and memories, but those words, "without guilt or obligation," rang in my ears. Dad had anticipated this very situation. He had known Heather might challenge his decision and wanted to free me from the burden of doubt. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I want to fight this," I told him. "Not just the legal claim, but the narrative she's creating." "Good," he said, "because her lawyer just filed additional paperwork. They are claiming emotional distress and attempting to use the children as leverage." What do? We respond with facts, not emotion. We have the will, the deed, and clear documentation of her behavior. We also have the testimony of the police officers who witnessed her trespassing. Over the next few weeks, I gathered every scrap of evidence I could find: texts she had sent, social media posts, statements from the locksmith. I even found old emails where she had explicitly told me I was not welcome at family gatherings. When the day came to meet with Heather, her lawyer, and my attorney for a settlement discussion, I was nervous but resolute. Heather entered the conference room with the confident air of someone who expected to get her way. Her lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit, immediately began detailing their demands. "My client is willing to settle for half the market value of the house, plus compensation for emotional distress caused by the forced eviction of minor children." My lawyer calmly laid out our counteroffer. "Mr. Thompson will not be selling the house at any price. Furthermore, we have documented evidence of breaking and entering, trespassing, and attempted theft of property." Heather's face darkened. "Theft? It was our family home. I spoke up for the first time. Heather, I have spent my entire life hearing how I am not really part of the family. You made sure I knew that at every opportunity. You excluded me from your wedding, from meeting your children. You only reached out when you wanted something. Her lawyer tried to interrupt, but I continued. I have the letter Dad wrote before he died. I slid a copy across the table. He wanted me to have the house without guilt or obligation. Those were his exact words. Heather glanced at the letter, her face paling slightly. I am willing to help you, I continued. Not because I owe you anything, but because it is what Dad would have wanted. I will provide financial assistance to help you find a suitable place to live, but on one condition. What condition? Her lawyer asked suspiciously. An acknowledgement of the truth. A public statement retracting the lies you have spread about me throwing children out on the street. An admission that you broke into my home and attempted to take it by force. That is ridiculous, Heather scoffed. I will never admit to anything like that. Then we will see you in court, my lawyer replied, where all of this evidence will become public record. The case did go to court, though not for long. The judge took one look at the documentation, listened to testimony from the police officers and the locksmith, and ruled decisively in my favor. Not only did Heather lose her claim to the house, but she was ordered to pay my legal fees and make a public retraction of her false statements. Outside the courthouse, Heather approached me, defeated but still defiant. You won, she said bitterly. Are you happy now? This was never about winning, Heather. It was about truth. About standing up for myself after a lifetime of being told I did not matter. What about my kids? Do they not matter to you? I sighed. They have always mattered. That is why I set up college funds for both of them last week. They will have access when they turn 18. It is not their fault their mother taught them to see me as the enemy. Her expression softened slightly, confusion replacing anger. You did what? They are innocent in all this. And despite everything, they are family. But from now on, there will be boundaries. Clear ones. I will not be manipulated or bullied, not even in the name of family. I walked away feeling lighter than I had in years. The house was still mine, but more importantly, I had reclaimed my sense of self-worth. I had stood up against the narrative that had shaped my childhood, the lie that I was somehow less deserving of love and belonging. In the months that followed, I focused on healing. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Dr. Jensen helped me untangle the complex web of emotions surrounding my childhood and the recent conflict with Heather. Family rejection leaves deep scars, he told me during one session, especially when it comes from siblings. It makes us question our fundamental worth. Working through those feelings was not easy. There were sessions where I left emotionally exhausted, raw from excavating painful memories. But slowly I began to rebuild my sense of self. The house transformed along with me. I painted every room, choosing colors that reflected peace and new beginnings. The backyard, once overgrown, became a garden sanctuary. I replaced the old treehouse with a modern deck where I could sit in the evenings and watch the sunset. To my surprise, Tyler reached out to me about 6 months after the court case. He was struggling in math, and knowing I worked in finance, he asked if I would help him study for a big test. Our first session was awkward, with Tyler barely making eye contact. But by the third meeting, he was opening up about school, his friends, and his interest in computers. Amanda followed suit, initially tagging along with her brother, but eventually forming her own connection with me. She loved art, so I set up a small studio area in the spare bedroom where she could paint when she visited. Building relationships with my niece and nephew was healing in ways I had not anticipated. They were curious about their grandmother, my mother, whom they had never heard about from Heather. I shared photos and stories, creating a bridge between generations that had been missing. My relationship with Heather remained strained but civil. When she dropped the children off for visits, we exchanged basic pleasantries. She never apologized directly for her actions, but there was a subtle shift in her demeanor, a grudging respect that had not been there before. One evening after the kids had gone home, I sat on my deck, reflecting on how much had changed. The house that had once been a battleground had become a place of healing not just for me, but for Tyler and Amanda too. I had learned that family is not just about blood or legal documents. It is about choice, about mutual respect and genuine care. The greatest lesson was about standing up for myself. For too long, I had accepted Heather's narrative that I was less deserving, that my place in the family was contingent on her approval. Breaking free from that mindset was the true victory, more important than keeping the house. I also learned about the power of boundaries. Helping family does not mean sacrificing your own well-being. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and others is to say no to require respect as a condition of relationship. The journey is not over. There are still moments when old insecurities resurface, when I wonder if I truly belong. But those moments grow fewer and farther between. I know now that belonging starts from within, from accepting yourself fully, even when others cannot or will not. As for the house, it remains my home, but its meaning has evolved. It is no longer just a symbol of my parents' legacy, or a fortress against rejection. It has become a testament to resilience, to the possibility of creating your own definition of family beyond the limitations others try to impose. If there is one thing I could tell anyone going through family rejection, it is this: your worth is not determined by those who cannot see it. Stand firm in your truth, set healthy boundaries, and build your life around those who recognize your value. Sometimes family is not who you are born to, but who you choose to let into your heart. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who treated you unfairly? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve respect and love without having to earn it through sacrifice.